Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of the Forklift Certified podcast. Is it the third? Who
Yeah, it is
knows?
the third.
I'm your guy, Monolith. People call me Mono, and I have with me the wonderful,
Johnny.
hell yeah, we got Johnny Cash over here. What's that other guy's name?
Johnny Cash.
Johnny
Johnny
Cage.
Macaroni.
John,
Johnny Macaroni.
Johnny Cage from Mortal Kombat. Hell yeah.
Yeah. Johnny be
S-
good.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, as well, of course.
Johnny Bravo. Johnny
Johnny
Bravo.
Bravo, yeah, we're just gonna keep doing this for an hour.
Yeah, we're gonna get
Yeah, this is gonna be the podcast now. You're gonna have to listen to it. Anyways, yeah, we wanted to talk today about a bit about like communication, assertiveness, and like social conflict, and how what that looks like resolving like social conflict and all that stuff. So yeah, something I'm kind of terrible at, honestly,
mm.
which I want to get better at. Yeah, you got any thoughts, J
Oh,
Doc? Hmm.
I think I feel like this is my experience that most people are bad at that, and I'm also like not very good at it.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I think like I think the most important thing is like just paying attention, right? Like just like I think the necessary prerequisite for good I guess social interaction, communication and stuff. It's just awareness of what we're saying and what's on our head.
yeah,
Because like very commonly if someone says something that we don't like or that triggers us in some way or whatever, then some kind of thought that's probably not going to be very beneficial for the conversation is going to come up and it's going to influence everything we say.
yeah,
And then we become reactive, we become angry, we become whatever.
yeah,
And so I think like just actually being able to catch those thoughts of like, oh, this is a reactive thought. Let me stop for like literally just 1 second or 2 seconds,
mm,
and then let the thought go or whatever, and like just make the decision of whether or not I want to act on this thought. It's a very important skill, but it's very hard, right? It takes a lot of practice.
yeah. No, I still suck at that. Like, just like yeah, you're supposed to like treat people with like good faith, but it's like sometimes it's so difficult because
Hmm.
yeah, I had this thing with my buddy. This was around like the time when the whole Ukraine thing happened. You know what I mean? And of course, we
Hmm.
were just like fighting each other constantly. It actually there was like the funny occurrence where we went to a restaurant and like we just it was like this small locale, you know, like and we there were like a bunch of couples around us and it was just the two of us sitting at a table just screaming at each other about the Ukraine war. You know what I mean? And like we walked out and like we realized it was Women's Day. These were couples out on their like dates, you know what I mean? And they just like had us in the background and fucking fighting over Ukraine and stuff. But it's like
Yeah,
the point that I was like going towards is it felt like he was presenting a lot of like talking points from one side, you know what I mean? And I
hmm,
felt like I knew like the places he got his news sources from, which already like sort of like primed me in a reactive way to just like dismiss what he was saying, and it was like
yeah,
really hard to like take into consideration what like his view on the whole situation, which
yeah,
happens to me a lot.
yeah. And how do you feel when like you notice that you start like dismissing what they're saying because you already know the arguments or the facts about the situation that they're talking about and
Yeah,
that they might be incorrect or whatever.
it's very hard to like move towards like an amicable solution, honestly, for me personally, because
Mm.
I just like want to like there is this like toxic sort of like behavior. Like you want to like own them with like facts and logic, basically. Like just
Yeah.
yeah, you want to tell them the way things are, and you want them to accept that without taking into consideration the emotional component, the resistance they have to it, and what that might mean for their like own ego and like self worth for like having to admit that they're wrong, which is not a winning strategy usually. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to take all of that into consideration during the act of having a discussion, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of stuff and takes a lot of practice, I think. And
Yeah.
I think most people don't do that. Like even if you look at like big personalities and stuff, most people are like, "All right, your feelings are gonna get hurt. I don't give a fuck,"
Yeah.
right? And it's like it's your problem. Facts and logic are here, and they don't give a fuck about how you feel.
Yeah.
So get fucked. And yeah, and I mean, sometimes if it's like, I think if it's like, I don't know if this friend was like a friend that like totally fine with it and stuff.
Mm.
Like I feel like if it's like someone that's okay with the whole thing, then maybe having a kind of discussion like that where it's like not necessarily like super structured or taking into consideration all this stuff,
Yeah.
it's okay because it's like is your buddy, you get him, he gets you, and it's kind of okay. But for most things, it's like for most situations at least, it's like not the case, right?
Mm.
Especially when it's like new people or like people that are like looking for a certain thing out of the discussion. Um, but yeah, I feel like sometimes it's like when you have a buddy, when it's like it doesn't really matter how you speak. Of course, you don't have to be like an absolute total douche, but like like there's like a fluidness of like conversation. They can just speak with your habitual patterns and it's okay, and they speak in their own habitual patterns and it's okay. Um, it's very like it's I don't know, like we've been told that we have to to pay attention to everything. Like what I was saying, like paying attention to the emotional side and to
Mm.
your own reactive thoughts and whatever. Like we've been told that this is how you have productive conversations, or I don't know if it's like productive is the right word, but you get what I'm saying, like beneficial or interesting or
Yeah.
appropriate conversations or whatever, or appropriate discussions. But
Like
like
useful conversations.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And like sometimes it doesn't have to be like that, right? Like if you find a buddy where like you just speak in your own way and he speaks in his own way,
Yeah.
and both are okay with that, and you can like, you know, leave the interaction and like just continue chatting about regular daily life or whatever people regularly chat about, then that's very interesting because it's like that you can be you with your own habits and with your way of speaking, and like this guy is still your buddy, this guy is still your friend. He's not gonna be thinking less of you or more of you, and it's very nice. It's very nice. You get what I'm saying, right? I think.
Yeah, the thing is like that's sort of I feel like a prerequisite for like being able to like be oh sorry. The prerequisite for being able to like stay buddies after a conversation like that is having a strong relationship, and I feel like one thing that's like really useful is when the person this goes for any time you're like discussing sort of more intellectualized ideas, is just having people that are not like emotionally or like personally tied to the idea itself, right? Like it's not part of their identity. So like
Mm,
once if you attack the idea, you're just like attacking the idea itself. They don't perceive it as an attack on themselves.
mm.
Because a lot of the times, a lot of like feelings of tribalism tend to be involved.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, my side versus your side, all that stuff,
yeah.
which makes things like get toxic really quickly. And it's also like kind of exhausting to always be like, ass patting somebody without like telling them what's what. You know what I mean? Because like that's
Yeah.
like the opposite side. You end up just being compassionate without like being truthful. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Which is not good.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
It's not good. It's not good.
yeah. And
But
some.
what you're saying,
Mm.
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I just into like what I think what you're saying is that like when like the emotional attachment to the idea cannot be as present because, for example, let's say if you attack the other person's nationality or something like that, just the idea or the concept of the nationality, and this person is very attached to their nationality, then they're going to feel like it's a direct attack at them, even though you're just speaking about the concept itself, right?
Yeah,
Uh, and you're saying that if that disconnect is there, which is that if the person is not necessarily super attached with the idea itself, then one can be a little bit more reckless, I guess. I don't know if that's a proper word, but a little bit more uh, not in a need of like applying all these methods and ways of having a discussion.
yeah.
And one can be like more natural and fluid in that sense.
A bit more
And it's
loose.
not going to be
Yeah.
yeah more loose. Yeah, yeah. So that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah, yeah. It also like takes a certain degree of openness from the other side and from the person speaking as well, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. Like a openness and like a open mindedness, right? Like
Yeah,
because
open-mindedness. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, you cannot like if you're like very strict in your own ideals, then it has to be this way and this way only and only this way. And it's like
Hmm.
um, if there's like an alternative perspective being presented, it's gonna be interpreted as just an against a thing that's against me.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well,
yeah.
there's this like concept of ahimsa in like Buddhism and other karmic religions is it's sort of like this principle of non-harm, like not doing harm to other like sentient beings, right?
Hmm.
And like a lot of these symptoms, a lot of these systems put compassion and like non-violence before truthfulness. And I always,
Yeah.
that's like a big conflict for me, you know what I mean? Like, do
Mm.
we want to be like truthful, like in spite of everything, like whatever the consequences may be, or do we like want to like at times sort of
Yeah.
tone things down a little bit, you know?
Yeah. I think what that kind of what that message means.
Yeah.
I think a good example to actually understand what is being said by them is not like to. It's not like to. Isn't they're not saying to like be fake or to be like, you know, to just not tell the truth. I don't think that's what being told about. Is to be like understanding that there's like a situation to be just straight up truthful,
Yeah.
and there's a situation to be a little bit more patient, apply a little bit of empathy and understanding, and then shortly after, one can be truthful about it, right?
Yeah.
It's like I think the easiest example to understand this. It's you know this because I know you know this. It's like when, for example, let's say you have a I don't know a kid whose parents just died in a car accident, but the kid doesn't know yet,
Hmm.
but you know, right? And are you going to like straight up just tell them the truth because you have to tell the truth according to uh, this ideology, and you must only tell the truth? And you're going to just be like, hey, man, hey, kid, I know you're, I mean, it's just, I'm not gonna lie. So your parents just died,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be like, no, like, there's maybe a way to say like, hey, man, how are you feeling and stuff? Everything good with your school? Everything good with you? Do you have anything to do now? You have homework to do? You have anything, you know, you start like kind of, chatting with the kid and like trying to understand what is his current situation at that particular moment. If he's like too emotionally busy, if he's like tired, if he's exhausted and stuff.
Yeah.
And then after a bit of like talking about stuff, you softly, softly, softly start introducing the information that, you know, his parents died or something, right?
Yeah.
And so it's I think that's the kind of it's closer to what it's being told about this stuff about truthfulness being a secondary to compassion and that kind of stuff. Because like if you're gonna tell a young kid that like his parents just died, that's gonna be super, super, super impactful, right?
Hmm.
A kid doesn't know how to process that shit. So it's important to be very understanding and stuff. And maybe you have to tell them, hey, yeah, your mommy and daddy are coming soon or something like that, and you might have to tell like a little what would you consider like a little lie or something like that. But it's fundamentally like it's being a preparatory step to tell them difficult news, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so I think that's closer to what's being uh, presented in this thing that you mentioned in this idea of the Buddhism or like compassion being first and then truthfulness.
Yeah.
I don't know what do you think?
Well, yeah, it's sort of like the concept of like offering the truth when it is appropriate, when it is like acceptable,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But also, like, I do think about it sometimes, cause at the end of the day, you're gonna have to tell them. You know what I mean?
Yes, you're gonna
Like
have to tell them. Yeah,
eventually, eventually.
yeah,
But also, like, some people don't understand anything else other than harsh language.
that
Like,
is true. That is true.
or
Yeah.
actually, am I wrong about this? Maybe that's just like a perception that I have, or maybe that's
Maybe.
just like me fucking wanting to own people. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
have you met people like that? Like just like being trying to like be nice about things or like compassionate and then like not direct just doesn't work.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, like sometimes, I mean that's the language they're like most familiar with, right? Because they
Yeah.
they grew up like that and stuff, and like they only know when it's like just purely directly in their face,
Yeah.
you know, just you know, boom, like direct exposure.
Yeah.
Um, but then it's like maybe it's like that because this person only knows this particular way of understanding things, right? But like if someone were to like present them, just not necessarily teaching them, but like just speaking to them in a different way,
Hmm.
like or chatting with them in a different way, like maybe over time they would like uh start understanding a secondary language.
Yeah.
But then it's like it's also important to realize that some people just it's just not going to happen, right? Uh, I know, for example, with my some of my like with my mother, for example, that stuff does not happen as
Yeah.
far like I've tried a lot and it just doesn't seem to happen sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So some kind of like direct action approach is the only thing that makes um, something happen, you know.
Yeah.
So there's like a limit, right? There's like one tries and be patient. If that doesn't work, you move to another step, and if that doesn't work, then you go back to the direct language, direct approach kind of thing, you know.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I mean that's what I think. That's what I think. But I think with uh certainly a lot of people, to be a little bit patient and stuff and introducing, like if the person, the thing is that like it's not fully dependent on us. I think we get this idea that like the way we're taught and stuff, and how when you watch Instagram reels about this stuff and communication and compassion and empathy and blah blah blah, all this woo woo stuff,
Yeah.
uh, like it gets too fantasized and not like that grounded in reality, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's important to like understand that uh, there's like a way of doing things. It's not intended to be like interpreted just literally that like you have to always be compassionate and this and whatever, you know. Um, there's a certain nuance that needs to be applied, like a certain, honestly, a little bit of like common sense sometimes that like we sometimes start to forget about when
Hmm.
we start get diving into this stuff, because it's very important that the other person is receptive to different kinds of ideas, to different kinds of communication, you know.
Yeah.
And if the other person is not receptive to that, which takes some practice, right? I remember very well how like say 5 6 years ago I was not receptive to like most ideas that I am now, right?
Hmm.
But I got exposed to like just people from different cultures, different countries, different life situations, like from like one extreme to another. And then I start to realize, okay, maybe there's something else here. Maybe there's like different realities. There's different ways of interpreting just the same thing, you know. Uh, and that by itself allowed me to be more open minded and more receptive to different ideas, right? But it was a step that I myself had to do. It was kind of an accident, really, because I wasn't like necessarily looking to be open-minded. As you know, I just like happened to be interacting with different people from different countries, different places, different life situations, and then naturally you become more open-minded because you start realizing that reality is not just your reality, you know.
Hmm.
Uh, and yeah, I think that step is necessary, right? Because it's not something that is taught like in these spaces of like they don't say they're like, okay, the other person has to be open minded. Otherwise, this technique of empathy is not gonna work, man. You're gonna suffer a lot, and you're gonna try a lot, and nothing's gonna happen. They're gonna take advantage of you, and you're gonna become a little bit of a doormat. And you're gonna become a little bit of like a people pleaser and all this stuff. They don't tell you any of this shit. They just say,
Yeah.
be compassionate,
Hey,
be
just be
empathy,
nice.
develop empathy,
Just be
be
nice towards
nice.
them. Yeah, just like don't be
Yeah,
like.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't know. See, well, that's like the sort of that's sort of like the general view, right? Like people just tell you to be
yes,
like nice. Do,
yeah,
do you
yeah.
ever feel like maybe there's like a gender component there?
What do you mean?
Because like a lot of like teachers tend to be like women,
Yeah.
and like women tend to be like, well, if you look at the average is like more agreeable,
Mm-hmm.
and the way they like resolve social disputes is like more for like understanding and like
Yeah.
it's not like direct conflict usually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that
Yeah.
could
For
like play
sure.
a part? I was like
Yeah.
thinking about that, like that like popped into my mind.
I mean, I think it definitely plays a part, right? I mean, we know that, for example,
Mm.
even in like the field of therapy, that we know that like talk therapy is quite beneficial and it works. But we also know that like almost 90% of the studies that were done about how this is working and it's a good tool and stuff were done on women, right? So
Yeah.
it's heavily biased um, results and methodology, right?
Yeah. Like it's
We know
different.
that like for men it's more like action oriented than talk therapy, right? We go to therapy or we go to coaching or whatever, and we're like looking for an action. We were looking for like, okay, this is we're looking for a solution, right? We're like a lot of the times when people come to, I mean, I know for me at least, right? When people come to me and they start talking about their problems, I my natural inclination is just to start like problem solving,
Yeah.
right? And I know this is like the case for like most men, and it takes a while to like just like stop and be like, okay, can you help me understand what you mean by this? Can talk to me more about, like, help me understand more what you mean by this emotion, or this thing that you said, or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, it takes a practice to do that, and it's beneficial sometimes, but like also sometimes it's like a threshold, right? It's beneficial for I think for women in general is seems to be a lot more beneficial than for men, right? So that's for sure a bias there. Yeah,
Yeah. And also, yeah, beneficial. I'd say easier. I think, because
yeah,
if most of the therapists are women, and like most of like the clients are women, like the communication pathways are gonna be like standardized in some sense, right? Like if you're a
yes,
guy, your experience from that of a like a man's experience from that of a woman's experience of life is probably just gonna be significantly different, right? It is different, and that
yeah,
just like makes communicating things a lot more difficult. I had a friend who I talked to him about it, and he started going to therapy. It was like the therapist was a guy, and I asked him like, would you ever go to therapy if the therapist was a woman? And he said no, like flat out.
mm,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
get that sort of.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, I think, I mean, and we know this, that like, and I'm sure you agree is that like it is possible to like have a good therapist that's like a woman and fully understand us as men, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
It's like you. I feel like anybody can be like that kind of person. You just have to approach things from the perspective that like you're ignorant of this person's experience, and you have to
yeah,
like listen to what they're saying actually.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
that's like the main. I feel like that's the telltale sign of a good listener. Honestly,
yeah,
it's like I don't know
yeah,
what's going on, and I'm gonna rely on this person to like tell me the information, and then I'm
yeah,
gonna like try to evaluate that and like maybe help them out in some way. You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
And for them to do their best of like getting themselves in our shoes, right?
Yeah.
And to not have like these preconceived ideas
Not
of,
like getting themselves in our shoes, because that's sort of a yeah. It's like understanding our experience. I feel like
yeah,
getting themselves in our shoes. It's like yeah, I would have done it that way. Why the fuck are you doing it that way? You know what I mean? Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's so fucking stupid. Like that's putting myself in somebody else's shoes, right?
Hmm.
But like understanding their perspective, it's like they probably had these certain challenges which shaped them in a certain way and made them react to certain things differently, right? Than me.
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like that's understanding like a perspective. I feel like there's like a significant difference there between like understanding perspective and like putting yourself in somebody else's shoes.
yeah,
Right? Maybe it's just
for
like
sure.
maybe like we just like mean the same thing, but we just like use different words. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's okay. I get what you mean.
Yeah,
And I think also not assuming, right? Like just not assuming
yeah,
certain things, just because like this person is like this, I'm going to assume a certain thing, and then my whole understanding is going to be biased by this assumption.
yeah,
Uh, and then it takes a lot of work. Like I think the thing is that I feel like most professionals in this field are not that good. Like that takes a lot of practice and takes a lot of actually wanting to understand other people's experience.
yeah.
They're going to be like very different from you, especially if it's like a different gender and everything. It's going to be very different from you, right?
Hmm.
And the deep desire to fully understand someone, or to the best of their ability at least, it's something that's I think kind of rare, because most people, and including most professionals, are not that interested in fully understanding in that sense. There's like a part of them that's just kind of like, all right, I have these tools, I have this thing that I learned in school, I have these things that I learned on my own, and those things that they learn kind of cloud their judgment and their actions in a way,
Hmm.
and it's gonna bias their understanding. Like it takes a lot of, for me, it takes a lot of like self-awareness to be able to get to that point, right? Which is what I think like people like Dr. K can do very well, because he's done a lot of self-awareness, right? So like even when he talks to women and he's listening to like women's experience, even though he's not a woman, uh he he can understand closer than most male people in the field would.
Yeah.
And that's very clear. I think that's very clear.
But the thing is,
Um,
even then, he still says, like, he always is very clear about this, that he's not a woman, that he doesn't have the experiences of a woman, and
yes,
that's the thought that's always on his mind. It's that he's talking to a person which is just different than him, right? Like
yes,
that's
yes,
always the
yes.
thought that guides his sort of behavior, right? Like the way that he like thinks and interacts with the other person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. It's being honest and sincere about like, okay, I'm doing my best and I'm being aware of everything, and at the same time, I know that I'm like not physically a woman, and I'm not living in society as a woman, and I did not grow up as a woman, and I don't know the woman experience nearly as much as you are, as you understand. And I'm just doing my best, but at the same time, there's only so much I can do, right? And this, like that kind of understanding is, I find it to be quite rare. Um, that level of like approach, of I think it's just awareness, just like being aware of like I can do this, and I'm doing my best to help you, and at the same time, there's only so much I can do because there's a certain threshold, just biologically, right, and culturally and whatever. And I think just being aware of all of that, it's very important. It's like super super important, and it's like I feel like not the common thing,
yeah,
if that makes
definitely.
sense.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's also like the case, which is something I heard from like the Dr. K guy as well. It's like some people just have very primitive empathy circuitry. You know what I mean?
What does that mean?
Like it's almost there's like a biological barrier to them understanding you. Like they're just not that smart. But that it's
Mm,
not like intelligence, it's something else. It's their ability to like relate to people. Maybe it's something like tied to psychopathy or like sociopathy,
mm,
which is the current term for it, I think.
mm,
You know what I mean? Because if you're
mm,
talking to like an actual, I don't know if even if like actual sociopaths exist, honestly.
mm.
Because like the whole of, sort of emotional empathy circuitry is so deeply buried within the brain that like the idea that an actual psychopath exists is sort of like hard to believe for me. Because
Mm.
usually we can see ways in which they get their emotional needs met, which are non-standard, but they're
Yes.
still sort of they map onto things just in a different way. You know what I mean? If
Yeah.
that makes sense. That was like
Yeah.
very vague. I gotta come up with a
Do you
better
think
example. Yeah.
do you think that's like a biological thing, or do you think it's like habitual patterns that can be trained to to go outside of that sociopathy scale and stuff like that?
I don't know. I genuinely have not done the necessary research to be able to have like an informed opinion on that, which is
Mm,
something that we can do for next episode. So
mm,
I'll make a small note about that. That's also going to be like very interesting, I think.
yeah.
And yeah, and also like the whole case about like autism. Well, autism isn't like a yeah, it's a spectrum because you can train like empathy. I think when it comes to like autistic people, I think as well.
Yeah,
And when it comes to like
exactly,
facial
exactly.
recognition, yeah, because that's like an argument against sociopathy being a thing. I think
Yes.
to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think I think there's like this big issue in in general in society in the way we live life, which is that when when something when we attribute some label to something that we have on us, for example, let's say I'm autistic,
Hmm.
and then I'm labeled as autistic, and my therapist says I'm autistic, and I now start identifying as an autistic person, and I consider this to be a fixed thing that's like always there and always it's not going to change,
Yeah.
like I feel like there's this is a big issue because like people are literally looking for labels to label themselves so that they can justify their behavior.
Yeah. I think yeah
And that's
that's
that's a big issue.
that's the thing for a lot of stuff. I think, but also like I think it's important to be just realistic. Like autism is like an actual thing, right?
Yeah,
Like it's an actual differentiation or like neurodiversity, I guess it's called nowadays.
yeah,
It's a differentiation in the way people think and perceive things and the way that
yeah,
they interact with other people. But at the same time, it goes to your point. It's like the healthiest people that I've seen, they usually don't call themselves autistic, or at least maybe my sample size is just too small. But the way that I've seen it, like people that refer to themselves as having autism instead of autistic, like it seems small, but there's this like differentiation between an identity and like a something that they have, right?
yes.
I
Big
they
issue, big difference.
yeah, they tend to be like a lot more well adjusted, at least in my experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because like if they the moment we start labeling things like think like in our own heads, like I am this, I am that, you
Yeah.
know, that's a very fixed thing, right? Like if I am I don't know, something, then that's what you are. You know,
Mm.
it kind there's like a kind of in the language, there's a kind of implication that's like that this is how it is, you know. But if it's something that I have or something that I'm going through or something like that, then there's an implied thing there where it's like there's an assumption that like it could be temporary, you know. It's like a process. It's like a thing that like, you know, sometimes like if you say that um like it's like for example when you have the flu or something, right? Like you it's a temporary thing, you know it's probably not going to be there forever,
Yeah.
you know. It's going to be there for like a week or two and then it's gone, you know. Um, and that kind of approach, like you're not always in your own mind thinking like I am sick, I am sick, I am sick, I have the flu, I'm gonna always have the flu, this is a permanent thing in my own life now. It's like
Yeah.
this is who I identify with. I identify as a man with the flu, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like
The Man
it's,
with the Flu. That sounds like a good movie title.
the man
Continue.
with the flu.
Continue.
Yeah, book title, a book title.
Yeah.
um but yeah, you know, it's the moment we start like we stop labeling stuff like this
Hmm?
in this way, it helps a lot. And we know because like well, what is like I think like part of the placebo effect is also the way you formulate things in your own head, right?
Yeah.
Like if you truly believe that like something is like just passing through, or you like when you take a pill and you really think this is just gonna heal you, now you're no longer like thinking that you're a sick person, you know, like maybe tomorrow you're gonna be good, you know, even though it's just like a sugar pill. Just this thought process change makes a big difference, like physiologically, you know.
Hmm.
um it literally changes the way your brain interprets the thing that's happening in your body, and it makes a huge difference. And I think uh I find a lot of people that are like just looking for a label to identify with. Like I think like one of the best examples nowadays is like ADHD.
Hmm.
It's like if you identify as an ADHD person and somehow justifies just like your lack of attention,
Hmm.
the fact that it's really hard to concentrate, the fact that it's really hard to follow through with something to be productive, and it's all true. It's absolutely all true. But the moment like you start identifying like very closely with that, then it's like you a lot of us stop looking for ways to adjust to that, and we just start like justifying is like, oh, I can't do my homework because I have ADHD, you know. Oh, this thing, yeah, I can't find a job because I have ADHD, or you know, there's all of these random justifications. I don't know if those were like good examples, but you get what I'm saying. Like
Yeah. It's
I've
like
seen people justifying their bad behavior due to a condition that they have, you know.
yeah, it's like
uh,
people, it's so I feel like I feel like that's the case for most people. It certainly was for me for a long time. It's like it's your the default way the mind works is finding reasons. This is specific to me, I think, and people who have had like difficult issues in life which sort of like shape them in a certain direction. It's like for some people, the automatic answer that your mind gives is the reason why you cannot do something instead of
yes,
how you could do something, right? Like it's not
yes,
a pros and cons list. It's all cons, right? Like why you shouldn't
yeah,
do something and all the negative things, which is also a good reason why it's useful to make a pros and cons list because it sort of puts things into perspective, and like
yeah,
lets you think about things in a more balanced way. I know that guy, the pirate software guy, Thor, he had this like very specific way of thinking. He would imagine the worst case scenario and he would imagine the best case scenario. And reality is probably somewhere in between those. So that's how he helped overcome this sort of like way of thinking. So like you're not being too positive, but also like not too pessimistic about certain topics.
yeah. Yeah, I think those kinds of exercises, honestly, I should do them way more.
Yeah.
Personally, I don't do them nearly as much.
Yeah.
Uh, but for sure, like I remember, like just start just the fact of like start thinking in a way that's not habitual. I think that's the most important thing because habitually the mind is looking for justification for a reason to to be okay with a certain situation, right?
Yeah.
It's like if I can't be productive, the mind will go to find a reason, say, oh yeah, I had a really difficult childhood, where I was like always attached to my computer because that's the only way I could deal with issues. So
Yeah.
that's why I can do anything, and somehow that makes it okay
Yeah.
and justifiable, and it perpetuates this kind of behavior to be okay, or
Yeah,
you know,
it's like your
like
roommate asks you like, why didn't you do the dishes? It's like, I had a very traumatic childhood and upbringing. It's like, yeah, okay, dude, do the
yeah.
fucking dishes. Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, it sounds that's a it's a silly example, but it's absolutely true, right?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
true. It's like you know, when we say it like that, it sounds a bit silly, right? But it's true. It's like that's a perfect example.
yeah,
It's a perfect example, and it's true for me too, because I
yeah. Me
remember
as well. Me
like
as well. Right?
yeah,
Like we're talking
it's
about
very
ourselves for the most part on this podcast.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah true. We're talking about ourselves. Yeah.
yeah,
And I mean, the amount of bad behavior that I've justified because of my childhood trauma or my bad relationship with my parents or whatever, you know, or my
yeah.
bad work conditions or whatever, you know, there's always something, you know.
Hmm.
It's I mean, well, I need like a full roll of toilet paper just to present
Yeah,
all these things that I've justified, all this kind of behavior, right?
yeah,
And at the same time, it's like, okay, I do have ADHD, and like I understand that this is gonna impact my life in some way, right? So we don't want to go like just the full neglectful path where we just like pretend that we don't have this issue that's not going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, right?
yeah.
But
Definitely.
these exercises that you were talking about and stuff are very beneficial because it forces us to think in a way that's not habitual,
Hmm.
and just by thinking in a way that goes against the habits, it's very very important. Like I remember when I worked with I had a period when I was working with a career counselor. She's like an executive counselor, but I was like a pleb, so I'm not an executive, but she was like doing she was doing it with me anyway, you know. Uh, and she made me do like small exercises of like, okay, how, you know, what are your uh, things like what are like your top five values or something like that. And then I would actually have to like sit and think and like just on the next day or whatever by myself when I wake up fresh and clear, I'll just sit there and like just pick like from a big list of values, I pick like the top five or something like that, you know?
Hmm.
Or like there's like this wheel of I don't know if what it's called, like the wheel of life or whatever, where um you have like the basic parameters or aspects of life, relationships, community, career, family, what else? Money, uh pleasure, you know, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff. And then you put a scale of like 1 to 10, how much is important for you, right? So I remember like community was like a 9 or an 8 for me, you know, and like
yeah,
friendship was like a 9 or an 8 for me. But then I remember stuff like money was not as high, not nearly as high, right? But then like emotional intimacy was like way higher, right?
yeah, yeah,
But then like for example, career was also not nearly as high, right? Like it was like a 4 or something like that, you know. So like there's clearly like these it it's like these are like small exercises that like help you understand. Okay, yeah, I realize that like I don't value nearly as much this as I value that, and it helps you to kind of start thinking in a different way and shaping your reality to match those kinds of things. And it's kind of like doing a pros and cons list, right? Like all of these small exercises like help a lot with just getting out of the habitual pattern. That's the most important thing. Just like interrupting the habitual thoughts, just interrupt them for like a minute or two,
hmm,
interrupt them and start generating new thoughts like, naturally, like, or through some kind of input, like an exercise like this, that it helps generate new thoughts and thinking in a different way. You know,
yeah,
and that's very. I think that's very important stuff, and I should absolutely do more of that. Absolutely.
yeah. Your voice is coming over a bit robotic. It seems like we're having some connection issues.
Oh, oh, sad.
Okay, well,
Wait,
hopefully that's gonna get fixed by itself.
you want me to reconnect real quick?
Hold on, let's change the region. Which region are you on? Automatic.
I don't know how to see that. Oh,
Top right corner.
Milan. I'm in Milan.
You're in Milan? I'm in Brazil.
Milan. You're
Hold
in
on.
Brazil?
Okay, pick
I'm in Milan.
Rotterdam. Rotterdam sounds European.
Why are you in Brazil? What are you doing?
Go to Rotterdam.
Oh, nice. I'm in Rotterdam. I'm in Rotterdam.
Hell yeah, we're both in Rotterdam. Wonderful.
you doing in Brazil, man? What are you doing in Brazil?
I don't know. I was training
Come
to
back.
become a scooter assassin. You know, one of those guys.
Yeah,
Yeah. Oh man.
come back. You're taking a picanha. You're eating some picanha. Doing some.
Oh my god, yeah, I forgot about that. You know Portuguese. You can, like, yeah,
Yeah,
you know the cultural references. I don't know any of that stuff. Oh
yeah.
man, yeah.
Picanha is like a very Brazilian. I don't know. It's called like a. It's not a steak. But it's like it's very nice. It's thin slices of meat.
Hmm.
They're very nice. I haven't had picanha in a long time. Long, long time. But
Interesting.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. What were we talking about?
I don't know what we were talking about.
That's the classic ADHD thing. Well, I got a wonderful topic to like pivot into. It's
Yeah.
about like it's about what you were talking about. The whole sort of like having a belief in front of you and then being able to challenge it. It's I feel like it's very useful to be able to write down all your sets of beliefs like in a formalized manner so you can see what the hell is going on in your mind, how you think, and then like be able to challenge that one by one and maybe readjust them. Just putting them
Uh,
down into writing and like as you mentioned, thinking about them, like having a dedicated set amount of time where you will like actually think about these specific thoughts, then like putting them down and then like being able to like have meta thoughts about those thoughts. I think that's like really useful. It's also like one of
how
the
does that
yeah.
how does that look like in practice?
Um,
For
s-
example.
I mean like just like grabbing like an opening notepad on like Windows and just like what sort of gives me trouble. Okay,
Mm.
studying gives me trouble. What do I feel like or like when you as every time you like notice a reaction you have to something like a very strong reaction, you can take that and then just like put it down into writing. Like I saw a dog yesterday and I got like really scared. Okay, what's scary about dogs? Well, they can bite you. Okay, bam, bam, bam. It's like, well, okay, are there like good qualities of dogs? Well, they can be like good companions in some cases. Are most dogs aggressive? Do most dogs want to bite me? I can look up statistics maybe online. What's the incidence of dog bites or dog aggressiveness? When you look at the history of dogs, what are dogs like? You know, like dogs are bred to be companions to humans, like by default. That's how we like domesticated wolves. Their regular state is usually not aggressive towards us, right?
Yeah.
So like you can challenge those thoughts and you can notice like the way your emotions interact with your thinking in that sense. It's
Yeah.
almost kind of like Vipassana, but like
Yeah.
slower.
You know that's a nice example. Where did you read that somewhere, or did you came up with it,
No, I'm just
or
coming up with shit. I like debating. That's the thing. I'm
that's
getting ready for my debate arc in my life, where I'm just gonna be fighting with people constantly and owning them with facts and logic. This is my preparation for it.
Destiny 2.0?
Yeah. Hopefully not. Hopefully I'm gonna burn less
Hopefully
bridges
not.
and build more bridges with the way I engage
Yeah.
with the world. Yeah.
Yeah. What you were talking about, it reminded me of I think they have this in psychology as well, but like in Buddhism, they talked about this way before,
Hmm.
how like a thought leads to an emotion, and then that emotion leads to an action
Yeah.
or a bodily sensation, and how the other way around is also true, that a bodily sensation leads to uh, a bodily sensation leads to an emotion, and then that emotion leads to a thought.
Yeah.
Um, and I mean that's absolutely true. Like it's very easy to understand. Like in practice, like like you get slapped in the face, that's a bodily sensation.
Yeah.
That slap generates anger, right? And then that anger, that emotion of anger, generates the thoughts, I'm going to hit back on this guy,
Yeah.
you know,
I'm gonna fuck him up,
and
man.
fuck him up, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And now the other way around is also obviously true. Like I have a habitual thought that keeps coming up, like dogs are bad, dogs are this,
Yeah.
dogs can bite you, whatever, and then that thought leads to the emotion of fear, and then that fear leads to a bodily sensation, and that maybe a tightness on the chest that then leads to like me running away, or me being feeling constricted, or start shaking a little bit out of fear, or
Yeah.
uh, so and that it reminded when you were talking about like identifying the thoughts and how they relate to their emotions and stuff. It reminded me of this
Hmm.
because like I remember when I was like practicing a lot, I remember seeing this process of like a thought leading to an emotion leading to a body sensation, like in real time, in a very slow. Like I would see this in real time. I caught like thoughts that then led to like a certain emotion coming up, and led to like a tingling on the chest and stuff like that. And I remember watching this again and again, and it was very interesting how like we know the theory of it, but then to see it in real time, in very like because it happens in like in a second,
Yeah.
but to see it happening and stuff, it's very, very good and interesting. And I think exercises like the one you were talking about helped with that too, for sure. I'm pretty sure. If I had to guess, like if I were to like if a person were to like start doing that, naturally they'll start noticing like their thoughts and paying attention to their thoughts, right? And then they would for sure see that like when they think a certain way, they feel sad, or when they think a certain thought, they feel like angry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and that's it's very useful stuff.
Yeah. That reminds me of like one of my meditation teachers. Do you remember Fafi?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Fafi. Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember.
The OG. Um, he used to like he taught me this like thoughts being like connected to sensations, which are then connected to what was the third thing? Thoughts,
Emotions.
sensations, yeah, emotions, right? So like those three things sort of appear like three chain links which are linked to each other on the background of your awareness. And the more that
Hmm.
the whole point of the meditation exercise was to dwell within the awareness and to observe this process of interconnectedness appearing before us, right?
Hmm.
It's also like a wonderful way to like explain meditation. It's like you're not imagine a canvas with a painting on it. So you in our day-to-day lives we're caught up in the colors of the painting and like the forms, right?
Yeah.
Meditation is about being the canvas and observing the colors, right?
Yeah.
And that's the way that I understand it. I think it's like really useful.
Yeah, for sure. So like not get so caught up in the colors and the shapes and
Yeah,
all that, and to like actually start abiding in the canvas itself
yeah.
and just seeing what happens, when you start doing that.
There was this like
And
interesting quote from a book that I read. Sorry for cutting you off, but like it was about a therapist talking about his experiences. It was called "If You See the Buddha on the Road, Kill Him," which is based on the koan,
mm,
the from the
mm,
Zen tradition. So
yeah.
he talked about a client who I think it was some sort of emotion he was describing. He was like a sailor on a boat trying to catch this sort of fleeting thing that he was looking for and was constantly driving him towards something. And like the therapist basically asked him, "Well, how would you feel if you were the ocean itself?" You know,
Mm,
which I thought was like really interesting. It's sort of like the thing that we were talking about.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think Buddhism has a lot of these analogies that are like really helps a lot with like kind of getting it,
Hmm.
you know. There's like the lake, there's being the ocean, there's being the sky, there's all this stuff,
Yeah,
and it's very useful, very beneficial. Yeah,
yeah,
it puts you in a completely different mind space. Like if one can actually tap into that, like you notice like this immediate uh peace. It's very clear. Like it's very, very clear. Like it doesn't like it's hard for me and stuff, but like when it happens,
mm,
it's like it's very clear like how everything gets like toned down. The intensity of everything, the
yeah,
importance of everything, all these thoughts that I give so much importance to, and all these emotions are like, "Ah," and like they just go like chill, and it's like holy shit, and like and it's very hard to describe, but like I know you know this as well. It's like it's very nice, man. It's very, very nice. It's so unbelievable, like what is possible to do with the mind and how I don't know. It's I always think about it how like how it's a shame how uh I think most people will never tap into the potentials of this stuff, just even a little bit,
hmm,
or if they do, they're like it happens by accident, and they don't notice the preconditions that were present for that to happen, uh again, um and I don't know, it always makes me a little bit sad, I guess,
yeah,
and nostalgic of like, oh man, you know, imagine if this person would like experience just this kind of peace just for like 30 seconds,
yeah.
or something like that. How it would like give so much hope and just peace and quietude, and like, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes I think about this and I don't think it's very beneficial or good, but
Well,
yeah.
the thing is,
But
like, even that's sort of changing nowadays because a lot of research is coming out about meditation, how it's useful for basically most kinds of like mental ailments,
yeah.
right? Like, yeah, except for like schizophrenia in certain cases where like it's more open mindfulness practice, so that can potentially cause psychotic episodes. But like even then, as far as I know, just doing light concentration practice is also beneficial. It's the ability to control your thoughts, which sort of like bleed into reality, which is the issue with like schizophrenia.
Yeah.
So like that can be a gateway for deeper practice as well, and it's something that I talked to my English teacher, my former English teacher. It's like he was a big meditator, went to a bunch of retreats, and he was sort of like didn't really get the point of statistical analysis of meditation and its benefits and all that stuff, because he viewed it as a sort of another avenue of capitalism to maximize its sort of returns and gains and all that stuff. It's sort of just
Hmm.
like another perspective of grasping, like the greed of capitalism and all that, which I sort of understand from his perspective, because it's like, yeah, you fucking work in a cage for Amazon, in like a warehouse. It's like, yeah, I am suicidal. What do I do? Oh, here's like a meditation cage. You just go there, you meditate 5 minutes, then you go back to your like 12-hour shifts. It's like, yeah, okay, go fuck yourself. But that's the thing. But I think it can be like really useful to have that sort of grounded understanding of meditation and be able to move from that onto like more deeper stuff, which is might be a bit
Hmm.
woo woo, right? But it's also like it helps with convincing people because there's numbers showcasing that this is effective, right? We can see the neurological processes going on, right? When people meditate for a long time, what it does to their sort of default mode network, their ability to control their emotions, their prefrontal cortex, and all that provides good argumentation for the use of meditation
Yeah,
and the engaging
for
of
sure.
it, right? And there's also like the spiritual aspect if you get into it, if you pick a tradition, whichever one you like, and like that can also offer a lot of stability to people's lives and can be very beneficial, I do believe.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think I remember hearing Dr. K say that like meditation was so far the only uh tool that is actually that actually helps with all mental health issues.
yeah, that's
Like
true.
it if you apply with meditation appropriately, or sorry, with say depression appropriately, it helps. If you apply with anxiety, it helps. If you apply it with ADHD, it helps. If you apply with bipolar, it helps. Even with schizophrenia, I think you mentioned that it helps. It has to be like very specific, just the way you were talking, right?
Yeah,
Um, and yeah, it's crazy, right? And what I what I what's a shame is that like how I mean, it came out like I don't know when meditation started getting like applied, like maybe 30 years ago or something.
mm,
Not much more than that, maybe 40. I don't know. Uh, and up until then, it's like it was like woo, right? So uh, I mean, it still is very woo in many cases.
yeah,
But there's a certain frustration that comes with like I need like imagine you need some kind of authority to like allow you to start trying or thinking in a certain way, right? Like it's like you need science to tell you that meditation is good for you to try it, you know.
yeah,
Um, Otherwise you don't try it, you know. Otherwise you assume it that's like woo woo or religious nonsense or whatever. Um, and I mean, of course, it's very great that like science is getting into it because now that allows people to just get it, you know, like okay, the science says it's nice. I guess I'm gonna try it, and obviously you're gonna get the benefits from it, right?
yeah,
If you do it properly. Um, and at the same time, it's a bit frustrating for me to be limited to a system that like tells me, okay, if it's not scientific, then don't try it or don't do it, you know. Or
yeah,
yeah, well, it's not telling you, but like a lot of us are like, okay, has it been proven scientifically, or is there evidence of this? No, then I mean, I'm not gonna waste my time with it, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that, but
I
how do you feel
understand
about it?
I get what you're saying. Sort of like being able to try things which are outside of your normal sort of limitations of thinking, right? Like you
Yeah.
or like your sets of beliefs, like being more like flexible in regards to like what you might like try to apply. But I'm a big fan of having that sort of quote unquote like rational way of looking at things, right?
Hmm.
At least in the external world, because I think it has like a lot of benefit and it helps people avoid a lot of negative stuff which can be associated with meditation. For example, like
Hmm.
this whole sort of like scam artists. It's like, oh, free your mind,
Oh yeah,
beautiful. Oh my goodness. It's like, yeah, just being able to
all the
like,
cults,
yeah, or like incense sales. I shouldn't.
instance.
Yeah, like just yeah,
Yeah,
buy my incense, buy my beads, buy my
yeah, man.
stuff. This will increase your spiritual potential by 200%. You have to
Yeah,
understand. It's like, yeah, that sort of thing.
It's very
That's like,
beneficial for that.
yeah, that's the, or like the crystal salesman. It's like, oh, buy this quartz crystal, you're gonna be able to speak to your dead grandma with this one. It's like, I'm not sure about that one, dude. You know, it's like, it helps avoid people that sort of thing, but it also like cuts people off from potentially deeper practice and more like useful things, right? Of course. But
Yeah,
I still lean more towards like the whole rational way of processing stuff. Now,
yeah.
it's yeah,
I
it's
mean,
it's the way that I got into meditation, and I think that's cool. You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm not gonna be against it.
yeah. Also, I think is the way things are moving anyway.
Yeah.
Like things are moving towards that direction of understanding things in that sense, and then start applying it to like a general population.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay. It's okay to, but like I remember, and it's good because like now we have people like Daniel Ingram and stuff, like actual scientists and people in the medical field and stuff, where uh, like actually like Daniel Ingram, all he does now for the most part is just he works on the EMRC or whatever it's called, you know,
Yeah.
and like he's just trying to like make it in a way that it becomes more like standardized, like more widely accepted, more widely implemented
Yeah.
in the deeper sense. Because like if you want to do uh like mindfulness based stress reduction, then you don't need Daniel Ingram for it, right? But because that kind of research is already there. But Daniel Ingram is going for the deeper stuff.
Hmm.
He's going for like the actual awakenings and for the 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 the, the deep jhanas and everything. And he's trying to like figure out a way to do that scientifically and share it and understand it and getting funds for it and all of it and having a bunch of researchers and scientists behind it and stuff. Um, and so he's interested in the deeper, what we've been calling as the deeper stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, and turning it into like less woo woo, so that more people start actually doing it, right?
Yeah.
Um, and that's very cool. That's very cool for sure because he recognized that like okay, this is the way things are going, right? And like for me, I had to like I mean I did was like I mean I did the path to liberation, and I studied the sutras, and I studied the what is the other book called? The commentaries. I forget the name.
I don't know.
Anyway, the one from where he got the path, right? That path that he uses for the pragmatic dharma and stuff.
Hmm.
With the dark night of the soul and with all this stuff, came from the fuck. I used to remember these all these monks' names and all these books. I just forgot it.
Was it from
Anyway,
Mahasi Seda?
yes, the Mahasi Sayadaw, but Mahasi Sayadaw method is from the commentaries of the sutras, right?
Yeah.
It's not the original sutras. It's like the commentaries that came out like maybe 500 years after or something.
Gotcha.
But I don't remember the name. It's the big book that every pragmatic dude knows, but I just don't remember. Anyway, uh, but yeah, like like he got it from him and like from doing the practice and from reading all these woo woo books, right? That in a way they're like very actually very pragmatic. All they say is just like sit in a corner of your room and observe your thoughts and do this and notice the breath, the touching this place of the body and this place of the belly and this place of the nose and it's very stuff, but like it's very like direct stuff. It's not very woo woo,
Yeah.
but like it's still very woo woo because it's Buddhism, so it's kind of woo. And for him, it was enough. But then he realized that like, okay, for most people, this is not enough. For most people, they're not gonna read this book and be like yeah, understand it and like get it and like start following it and having faith in it and whatever. So let's just build some kind of system that's actually like scientific and having like research behind it and whatever and try to get these people and stuff. And it's been I don't know, it's very interesting. It's very so he recognizes this stuff and I think it's good. And yeah, because I remember like when I was like when I figured out how meditation has been benefiting me, I remember that I was like okay, I remember I was like a little bit anti-science for like a couple of months or whatever because
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, I like restricting me for like understanding this different way of doing mental health,
Yeah.
which has been very beneficial for me. So if I start keeping like following science and waiting for science to prove something or to validate something for me, and I wait for it to do that, so only then I can start doing it. Then I'm gonna be like, there's so much stuff that's gonna be cool and beneficial for me that I'm just not gonna be start doing it. I'm just not gonna start, applying it because it's not scientific yet, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was like, for like a couple of months, I was like anti. I don't want to call it anti-science, but I was like kind of like just not giving much of a fuck about it.
Hmm.
And then I realized, okay, I don't have to be like that. I can understand from the spiritual perspective, understand from the scientific perspective, understand from the rational perspective, understand from the religious perspective, from the artistic perspective, you know, and the new age perspective, whatever, and just kind of like exploring every single uh perspective of the same issue
Yeah.
and kind of encompass all of them and have a broader understanding of it. And that has been much better.
Yeah. Definitely. So yeah, that's a vast topic to explore, and I think we're gonna be able to explore it next time on the next episode because we're a bit short on time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, guys, thank you so much for listening to us ramble on for like an hour. If you're pissed off by anything that we said because we're completely wrong and dumb, make sure you tell us in the comments below.
Yes, please.
Yeah,
Please do it on the comments below.
yeah.
Make a big wall of text saying why we're wrong
Make sure you
and why we're
get
stupid.
yeah, make sure you get super upset about it as well. That's gonna give you the energy to like do the proper research, and also like make sure to subscribe so you can always tell us when we're wrong for the future episodes as well.
Yes.
So yeah,
So you can be more pissed off
yeah,
and write
absolutely.
more on our comments.
Yeah, make sure you don't enjoy this podcast at all. Yeah, it just fucking upsets you. Yeah, we're just messing around, guys. We love you. We hope to see you next time. If you're having a bad day, we hope it gets better. And goodbye.
Goodbye, guys. Peace.